Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Your Building, Go Green, Save Green, Make Green. We'll talk about that today with your speakers. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Ann Cosgrove, the Editor-in-Chief of Facility Executive Magazine, and the webinar today is presented by UTIL. So before we get started, I would like to cover just a few housekeeping items. Please note the control panel that is on your screen. This is where you can submit questions via the question box in that panel. You can send your questions in at any time during the presentation, and our speakers will address them at the end of their presentation. Also, please note the orange arrow that is on the left side of your control panel. Clicking on that arrow will either expand or collapse the panel, so please be sure it is expanded so you can access the question box. You can also use that question box if you experience a technical difficulty at any time. You can send us a message in that question section and someone will answer you privately right away. So I would like to introduce your speakers today, and we'll start with Mitch Goodman. He is a facility director who has managed performance-based service contracting for the light commercial, and industrial levels, geared around energy management for more than 35 years, helping owners get the project completed at fair and reasonable pricing to meet a minimum of 3.5 to 5 year paybacks has been a focus for Mitch. Another speaker today is Reed Gustin, and Reed is the National Sales Manager at Incentive Energy. He's an expert at helping people use technology to solve complex problems such as finding utility rebate estimates and understanding utility programs. We'll also hear from two UTIL executives, and that is Sam Bolland. He is Chief Marketing Officer at UTIL. And Sam has successfully navigated a number of companies through early round funding to market. He prides himself on understanding the marketplace and how that disruption can lead to market and industry growth overall. So we'll also hear from Sam. And Catherine Defenso Rojas will also be joining us as needed today. She is UTIL's Director of Business Development. Having over 10 years of experience in working with startups, Catherine thrives in building relationships for organizations and individuals. She's tech savvy and a computer nerd at heart. She strongly believes in never blending in where we're meant to stand out. So we're looking to have some standout content today. So thanks again for joining us. And as I said, please use that question section to contact us at any time and also for the end. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam Bolland at UTIL. Hi, Sam. How are you today? Hello, Sam.
I'm great, thank you. Hello, everyone. We're actually at the West Coast Energy Management Congress in Seattle, Washington. So we're really excited to be here and really excited to be talking to all of you. So thank you for taking the time to join us. So with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. I mean, obviously, you're all here to learn how to go green, save green, and make green. So let's dive in. There we go. Okay. Can you guys all see the screen? Yes. Okay. Excellent. Let me first of all start off by talking about supercodes and what that means for you. There are a number of really interesting things that are coming within the industry as it comes to supercodes. And one of our first polling questions of today is, do folks understand the value of net zero and what it means for your building?
Great. So we're seeing some polls come in right now as they're
that's excellent. So it looks like we're at about 50-50 in terms of 55% no and 45% yes. So let's go ahead and go back to the presentation. So within that, we want to make sure that we are first of all talking about the paybacks and the values.
1 moment. Okay, so as it results to energy use and emissions.
So there's a huge untapped potential for energy efficiency that exists today in commercial buildings, especially as it relates to LED. Reed, I know that you are on the line, and one of the things I wanted to make sure that we were highlighting is some of the expertise that you have within the panel today. Reed is the National Sales Director for Incentive Energy, and he can talk a little bit through the rebate challenges and what that means from a perspective of expertise. Reed, why don't you go ahead and chat with us a little bit about rebates and some of those challenges?
Yeah, my pleasure. You guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
I'm assuming yes. All right, fantastic. Yeah, so when it comes to rebates and the adoption of energy efficiency through LED lighting, rebates can play a major role in that. A majority of the time when someone becomes aware of the benefits of LED and they still don't make the switch, it's usually because they either don't understand the long-term ROI or they're worried about the upfront costs, right? And so that's where rebates really come into play. By utilizing the rebates that are available, and currently, we're tracking over 1,000 different utility programs with active rebates. The rebates are able to offset the upfront costs from your retrofit between 25 and 75%, which is huge, right? And so once you know that there's rebates available, oftentimes if the switch still doesn't happen, it's because the rebate programs are so complex. The programs are seen as being complex and challenging because there's so many different aspects of everyone, right? So there's 1,000 different programs, but they're all constantly changing, whether that program has money or is running out of money, whether there's new submission guidelines, changes in rebate amounts, different standards for qualifying. And one of the most overlooked things is rebate caps, right? So there's all these different complexities within utility rebates, and so there's a lot of hesitation when it comes to switching to LED. And if they want to switch, there's a hesitation when it comes to applying for rebates, which is really why we do what we do. We've created this really powerful software that makes applying or finding finding what rebates are available within the spectrum of work that you're doing really simple. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Sam?
Absolutely. Thanks, Reed. I think one of the things that we would also highlight, and this is one of the advantages that an application or a technology would be able to bring to the forefront, is the abilities to understand what it is that you're missing out on by not upgrading and by not taking advantage of some of the energy resources out there. So moving on to the next slide. And I'm sorry, there we go. So as another poll question, do the participants know where to find their local commercial rebate information? Oh, wow. Looks like we're running about 50-50 for this too. So that's excellent. Moving back to the presentation. There are a ton of market barriers that are preventing the realization of the energy efficiency potential in the existing buildings, from elevated hurdles of rates to upfront capital costs, and including the lack of incentives for developers for effective installation. These are all barriers that are needing to be overcome to be able to understand how it is that you can truly save green. So, understanding the value and the value proposition of net zero, as well as understanding the value proposition of the existing rebates within your area. All of these various different market challenges are what is keeping folks from being able to find that true energy efficiency realization. Moving on to the next slide. So we're based out of Los Angeles, California, although today in Seattle, Washington. What are some of the other states and cities that are like leading the energy reduction charge? You know, obviously everyone hears a lot about Los Angeles and California in particular, but there are a number of other states and local cities that are leading the charge. Let's talk a little bit about them. So some of the other sectors of energy are varying by energy intensity. Obviously in California, you have the solar initiative that exists for all of the new buildings that are being built and or being retrofitted within the area. As well, California is leading with its property assessed clean energy programs. Mitch, are you on the line? Okay. So one of the things that's super important is understanding how those current standards for the new buildings are being built, and more importantly, how to, as a facilities director or how as a facilities engineer, that you can build a program that would be able to have buyback within the next 3 to 5 years, so that you are taking that capital and you're applying it correctly for your business. Moving on to the next slide. Let's talk about how it is that we can save some real money and what that really means for you. So low efficiency commercial office buildings offers an immense low cost energy resource that can be a real cost savings for the businesses. And you're able to then to redirect that capital to other capital investments and or other employees. Simple improvements such as window installation can yield $3 in savings for every dollar invested. And energy research firms have attracted some of the largest numbers of venture capitalist deals and are set to generate new jobs. And just kind of thinking out loud on that, I mean, I'm sure a number of you on the line are thinking about ways not only to do energy reduction within your LED, but you're also thinking about such things as controls and probably HVAC. And this is really an interesting opportunity, is if you're looking at the various different incentives that are existing for your area and in your states. All of that information is usually centrally located. As we saw from the previous polling question, you know, it's sometimes hard to run that stuff down. Reed, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing as challenges for the business end, from the business end of folks that just don't understand where to find those things?
Yeah, so when it comes to, you know, the rebates on lighting fixtures versus network lighting controls, yeah, currently, you know, network lighting controls are what we're forecasting to see of the thing of the future, right? Over the next 3 years, we're expecting a majority of the retrofits that are necessary to be happening to have happened, right? So by 2021, you know, the utilities are going to have a lot more of a focus on network lighting controls. And then, you know, ultimately by 2035, the Department of Energy expects more than a third of all installed luminaires in commercial buildings to have network connectivity. But then, you know, obviously there's still retrofits happening at that time. The rebate, the dollar amount of rebates is going to be going down, depending on what type of lighting we're talking about, right? So currently we're seeing the prices for some of the simpler fixtures like tubes, you know, your T8s and whatnot. The price for that is being driven down basically because there's so many manufacturers that are producing them. So we're seeing the rebate dollars going down. On the opposite side of things, you know, your high bays and your outdoor lighting is going to continue to have really high rebate dollar amounts. And you know, so as the focus changes to network lighting controls, you know, and you were talking about, you know, different states and cities trying different things. ultimately there's really like different sections of the country that are trying to figure out the best way to offer rebates for network lighting controls. You know, as times change and technology evolves, the whole goal is to become as energy efficient as possible, and that's all really coming through network lighting controls. And then as that's adopted, the focus is going to be more towards the HVAC side of things and putting network control into your HVAC systems as well, right? So, you know, the Pacific Northwest is you know, experimenting one way. The Mid-Atlantic is experimenting on doing rebates on a per fixture basis. You know, the Northeast is looking at creating rebate amounts on a square footage basis, but ultimately they're still trying to figure out the best way to offer rebates, and then we'll start to see a lot more consistency as they start to really try to figure that all out.
Awesome, thanks, Reed. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about how it is that as an engineer, there's the relationships between the building owners and the tenants and how you can navigate that. Unfortunately, Mitch, our expert in this, was unable to join the call. But one of the things that he talked about is some horror stories of, as a building owner, having a number of tenants that are not fully understanding what it is that is being installed in the building or why those things are being installed, and truly understanding what it means for them. So one of the things that, you know, we've heard and we've seen as these retrofits are taking place or as upgrades are taking place within solar, within HVAC, that you need to make sure that you are aligning not just to the standards of federal, state levels, but you're also aligning to your tenants, and you're talking to your tenants about what it is that is a PACE program and why it is that your building is you know, being considered for a change, and what that means from a CO2 perspective, what that means from a health and wellness perspective, and what that means ultimately for them having a more successful business. So as you're kind of aligning those efficiency improvements, you're able to really understand their true cost savings, which is very, very important, so that you can make sure that you're installing the proper equipment, etc. Moving on to the next slide. Technology must lead, but everyone must do their part. It's really, really valuable that everyone do their part. And at this time in the presentation, I would just like to remind everyone that has submitted questions to make sure to hold tight to the end of the presentation, and we'll make sure that we get those answered for you. As well, you know, just making sure that if there's any other questions that are out there, please don't hesitate to ask, as we, you know, love to answer those for you. You know, as a technology leader with Util and as a disruptive leader, you know, we must be responsible for how it is that we are disrupting the business and the industry, but we also must be responsible for how it is that we reduce trash and pollution, and understanding the efficiencies that are not only just around LED, but also all of the other resources such as water, such as our oceans, you know, such as even noise. You know, all those things are very, very important. And there's a number of ways in which that, you know, someone could choose to go green and be able to impact their overall environment. Moving to the next slide. So how much does going green really cost? And like, what does it really cost more? There's a lot of folks out there that are saying, hey, you know, I really can't find the capital funds for being able to secure, you know, this really dynamic change for my building. Especially, you know, in the current economy base that we're looking at, you know, there's a lot of challenges for being able to find business improvement loans. And so one of the things that is really important is to understand that that investment is not only just going to help the environment, but it's also going to help your rental costs. It's going to help your tenant costs. In the case of other buildings that are manufacturing buildings, it also is going to help what the output will be from your employees, so that you know, there's proven proven scenarios that are set up that show how that, you know, reducing CO2 and going green is great for not only your people, but also for your environmental benefits as well. Moving on to the slide.
Hi, Sam, are you there? I think we've lost you. This is Ann.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Can you go on to the next slide? Hello? There we go. Okay, so let's take a closer look at really what it means in terms of, you know, actual reduction. So at the rate that we're going, we all know that the Earth is simply not sustainable. And we really must start to understand all of the different resources that are going into something so that we can best survive. I know it's alarming, but there's a lot of reasons to focus on green buildings, and there's a lot of reasons to look at how it is that we can create structures, not only within our businesses of sustainability of financial models, but also sustainability of, you know, green conservatism that will help to lead to our businesses being more profitable and our people being more successful. You know, we really only have, you know, one planet, and if we all kind of dig in and do our parts, we'll be able to not only, you know, save green, but we'll also be able to make green. And that's really one of the things that we at Util really are building our model around, in that we're helping facilities directors and executives just like yourselves add an application, be able to have all the data that you need to be able to make a choice as to, you know, the cost of waiting and all those things, so that you can understand what is best for your business. In addition to that, we're producing white papers and other informational you know, pieces that will be able to be educational points for the community at large, so that we'll be doing our part, and we hope that we can do that with the partnership of people just like you. So with that, you know, let's talk a little bit about some case studies. There have been case studies that have found that the participants that are working in green environments have had 61% higher scores than those in conventional ones. There have been other case studies that are showing that, you know, between spending $14 to $40 per day per person on improving air quality can actually improve that employee's productivity by as much as $6,500 annually. You know, there's all sorts of reasons to be making these decisions. And, you know, that's not just in conventional buildings, but in all buildings. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to dive into some questions now. Let me just take a look at them.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Reed. This is Ann again. We did get some questions in, so I will jump right into that and just put them out to whoever would like to answer on the speakers panel. So we did have a question about incentives. I'll just back up to something you had touched on in the beginning there, as far as incentives, rebates, etc. So Reed and also Sam, you had mentioned sort of the number of incentives and rebates that are out there. There's a big number, and I'm sure our attendees are familiar with that if they've looked into these types of things for energy improvements and others. So the question is, once identified, what rebates or incentives are available, or other types of financing, maybe like PACE, that are available to the facility, location, and type of facility, etc. what are some examples of what facility executives need to provide then once they've identified an incentive or a rebate that might apply to them? What are some of the examples of information that they need, data they need to then move forward with that with their utility or other provider?
Sure. Sam, I can take that.
Thank you.
Excellent.
So when it comes to applying for rebates, well, first off, there's a variety of different kinds of rebates, right? There's midstream rebates that are available at the point of purchase through a distributor, and that's not something that you're necessarily going to have to apply for, but that's something the distributor handles. Unfortunately, there's less than 100 programs that are actively offering the midstream rebates. So the other rebates that we're talking about are either called custom or prescriptive. A prescriptive rebate is where it's based off of per fixture. So for example, if you're doing a 1-for-1 replacement of a 400-watt metal halide to 150-watt high bay, that particular lighting fixture in that utility may have a rebate of anywhere between $50 and $250, right? So in order to apply for the rebate of that swap out, there's some different things, and every rebate program has different things that they require, but most of the time the standard is that you need to have proof, that you installed it. You need to have a snapshot from the DLC that the product that you put in is actually DLC listed. So for anyone who's not aware, the DLC is the Design Life Consortium. It's the kind of the leading body or organization that says, this light meets these standards. It is energy efficient. It's going to last for a certain amount of hours, and so on. So you have to have proof that fixture is listed on the DLC. You have to provide a snapshot of the cut sheet for that particular item, and let's see, and then your invoices, right? So now depending on the manufacturer that you're using, there's about 26 different manufacturers that are actually using our software on their website. So we provide all of that data right there for you. Just as an example, Texas fluorescence or there's 26 different manufacturers with it. But if you type in your zip code and you select a certain fixture, it'll tell you exactly what the rebate is for that fixture. Provides for you the snapshot from the DLC, the cut sheet, and a link to the utility program. So ultimately, that's why right now the complexity in the industry is that there is we're tracking 1,056 different rebate programs right now. 995 of them are open. Some of them are closed for different various reasons. So ultimately, with us partnering up with Util, we want to be able to provide this information in a much simpler format, to ultimately provide ease of use when it comes to adoption to LED and energy efficiency.
Thank you. And I would like to circle back to how Util fits into that in a few minutes, but we do have some more questions from attendees. And on the incentives topic, we'll stay there for a moment. Reed, you had just talked about lighting examples. So we had two questions come in from the same attendee around building envelope incentives. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. Specifically, it was, are you seeing that they're mainly for only new windows and insulation, those two applications? And related to that, what about incentives to improve existing windows? Could you talk about maybe building envelope incentives and what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in here. So I think this is one of the complexities of all of the different rebate information that is happening via different cities and different states. So for example, in some states, the incentives are for complete window deinstallation and reinstallation, as well as then providing the different insulation around that window. In other states, it's just about the insulation. It's not about the windows. So there's a number of challenges for understanding how it is that the various different incentives programs can be applied to your building. And that's one of the things that we're working really hard at, is to take and differentiate our application with partnerships, like people like Reed and his team, to be able to expand how it is that folks are able to get their hands on those incentives easier, so that they can understand the capital gains that can come with retrofitting from the various different energy efficiencies.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So, okay, so let's jump a little bit into about away from incentives for a minute and talk about energy improvements overall. Util and incentive and working with your customers. Can you talk about any new technologies that are helping to simplify the process of energy improvements, whether that's the app that you offer or technologies that you're seeing used in the projects that you're part of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that is a technology that we are just starting to get our hands around, and that's machine learning. So that is able to take all the different aggregated data that you're seeing from various different municipalities and being able to machine learn against that, so that you can create a stronger energy profile. I think the other aspect of technology, and this may seem a little weird, but it's augmented reality. So as it is that you're able to see energy efficiency through the lens of augmented reality, you are able to easier see how the efficiency could be applied to you. So those are two ends of like super high tech. I think also, from a certain perspective, there's the element of ditching the pen and the paper and ditching the Excel sheet, and relying upon technology, relying upon some of the strategic aggregated data that is out there in simple form, with apps like ourselves, and partners like Incentive, that, yes, we're leading the charge, and yes, we're tip of the spear, but in terms of our technology is fairly simple. It is robust in terms of how it is aggregated, but it is simple in terms of its process. And it's just about getting folks to understand putting down the Excel sheet and actually understanding that an application can help you is a big deal. And it's changing consumers, habits and patterns, and that's always the most difficult challenge.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in with my own question there, Sam, when you talked about technology and aggregating data in terms of the decision-making process and pursuing energy improvements overall. Can you just hone in a little bit on what Util does do in terms of the platform and in terms of the type of data? I just want to be able to provide that scope of what type of data and information is provided with Util and how that can be applied by our listeners today.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. So we're primarily focused in the LED marketplace currently, but we wanted to make sure that this presentation was highlighting, all environmental challenges for green construction. But we're currently focused in the LED marketplace currently. We're moving very robustly into solar and HVAC, and those entities will be online soon. For the folks that own buildings and are building engineers or facilities directors, we provide a on-demand contractor that would be able to come out and on their budget be able to provide a estimate that would be for that retrofit specific to that building. In addition to that, with just very simple touch of the button applications, they would be able to see what their potential cost savings would be over time, as well as utilizing our partners with incentives technology would be able to see what rebates are available in their local area so that those could be applied. So we're literally connecting them to experts in the local marketplace, as well as providing them the cost of waiting. In addition to that, we are also providing financing. So as we were talking about, some of those harder to finance projects, we're also able to provide those individuals with financing.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioning your focus on LED lighting currently. We did have a question come in about selecting lighting fixtures, and so do you get into that and with your partners as well, such as incentive perhaps, as far as choosing a product itself? Do you get to that level as far as, okay, I'm looking at these, I'm comparing a few LED lighting products? Does your platform get into that level, or how does that work?
Yeah, I love the fact that this is coming from this audience, because one of the things that we were very curious about was if building managers, owners were actually interested in what light was going into their building. And so we actually have an open marketplace that those individuals are able to see the actual light that is going into their building and be able to understand why that light is going into their building. So it's not just you're being given a proposal, you're actually able to understand A through Z what that proposal means, and what it is that is going into your building, and why it's going into your building.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I do want to circle back to one more thing that Reed had talked about with incentives, and it looks like that will be our last question unless something else comes in. Reed, you had mentioned networked lighting controls emerging as a focus that utilities will have more incentives focused on lighting controls. Can either of you talk about maybe what you're seeing with your customers as far as what's out there in the market, as far as being prepared for that, kind of setting up that infrastructure toward networked lighting controls for those who don't already have that in place? Kind of what are you seeing out there, and maybe what suggestions would you have to those who don't have that in place and maybe do want to be able to take advantage of these things that are coming down the pike? And then I think we'll wrap up with that unless we get another question in.
Sure, yeah. So, as with any new technology, there's always the early adopters, and then followed by, a much larger set of people, right? So, as network lighting controls are becoming more popular and more advanced, my suggestion is to hop on the bandwagon as soon as possible. I mean, through installing LED lights, you're going to reduce your energy costs anywhere between 25 and 70%. It really depends on how your facility is set up. On average, by having network lighting controls on top of that, it's going to reduce even more your energy costs, right? You're going to save even more. And ultimately, long term, if you think, just really quickly, if you want to put numbers to it for it to make a little bit of sense, if your project costs $20,000 and your time to pay that back is 2.5 years, well, if you think about after 15 years, you're almost $100,000 in the green, right? So ultimately, becoming more energy efficient faster is my recommendation to everybody, not only for the world and for the environment, but for your balance sheet as well.
And I would add to that if as utilities are becoming more aware of what controls are doing, the utilities are saying, hey, we're mandating that you put this in, and by having the backing of partners that are local professionals that are handling this for you, you are able to take advantage of those savings faster. If you're just trying to do this and you're not getting the professional approach, you actually could be putting something into your building that isn't going to be giving you the results that you're looking for. And we've run into that a number of times. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're utilizing, the proper professional that has the right accreditations for each application.
Thank you both of you. So yes, let's see. We did have another one come in, so I'll just go with it since we do have some time. Do you have any suggestions on how programs, some of the programs like you've discussed today, the incentives, the rebates, etc., and others, how they can be integrated into small federal buildings? Have you had any work with federal facilities at this point? How that's worked out?
This is I saw that question too come through, and I was like, oh, I love this. So basically, this is a question of ROI. This is a question of making sure that you're proving it. And this is one of the foundations of what and why we got into the industry, because the application is able to so quickly show how it is that you're able to, you know, go positive over that 3 to 7 to 10 year period. As a federal approach, you're able to get all of that right information. In addition to that, with partners like Reed and his team, you know, we have the ability to see those federal mandates, and to be able to help you with what the federal government is most wanting to see, so that you're able to implement that into your project.
Thank you. And I just want to go quick back to the controls question, because we did have a follow on to that. The controls for as far as incentives are concerned, are the controls that you're seeing as far as the utilities incentives? Are we talking about for daylighting, occupancy, or numerous applications and capabilities?
It's all of the above. I mean, in a high-level overview, ultimately, you know, your network lighting controls are going to be dimming the lights or turning the lights off when people come in or out, ultimately reducing the amount of energy more than just the switch to LED, right? So, right, I guess that's kind of like the answer you're looking for. It's really all of the above.
Thank you. Okay, so then, well, we have a last one, and this is on renewable energy, and I know, Sam, you had mentioned that as a focus for util, so I'll just go out here with this question is, can either of you comment on, do you foresee utility costs increasing given the emergence of renewable technology? Do you have any thoughts on that? Seeing anything in the market that's indicating that utility costs will increase? Or
I mean, I think if you look at it from a previous technology approach, I would look at it very similar to what we've seen from the cable companies. So as digital as cable, from a technology perspective, became more readily available, as well as the tech that went into it became more expensive. There was cost increases, but as well, it led to cord cutting. So I think that you could very easily draw the line and be able to see a parallel. And I would think that the utility companies are looking at that same parallel and are saying, okay, we need to be smart about this. So my answer would be, yeah, I do see that could happen, but I would think that there would be some real thought that would need to go into it, or we would see even more cord cutting at the commercial level.
okay, thank you. Reed, any comment on that?
No, not really.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Making sure. No problem. And I thank all our attendees for sending in the questions. So with that, I will close out our presentation, and I want to thank you. I thank you, Reed and Sam and Catherine, also who's on the line, for the presentation, and of course to all the attendees for coming in today and for sending in your questions and listening in and voting in the polls. It always helps to get some feedback from the audience. So with that, I want to thank you all, and a recording of the webinar here will be available shortly on facilityexecutive.com. We also encourage you to visit util.com, which is youtil.com, to see more of what they are doing in the marketplace and what they have to offer based on what you've heard today. So thank you again, everyone, and thank you for joining us, Reed and Sam. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. And just to invite all of our listeners, if you want to try Util, you can download it for free. Just create a basic account profile, and then we'll connect you to local contractors. It's really easy. You can find it within the Apple Store or the Play Store. Just go download it, absolutely free. And thank you to letting us attend and getting a chance to speak with you all today.
Great. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.